Hey, this is Meridith Elliott Powell, and you know what time it is. It is 8 o'clock Eastern, Saturday morning, time for a Sales Logic. I'm hanging out here with my partner, Mark Hunter. Mark, I am in North Carolina. It is snowing like crazy. What's it doing on your end?
It is 29 degrees, according to the backyard thermometer. But hey, you know what? It's a lovely 70 degrees inside the house. So
Yeah,
anyway,
that's right.
good. Anyway, hey,
Yep.
you can keep the snow there. It's the reason I moved to Texas, because I got tired of snow living up north. Anyway, hey, we have got a great show. We're going to talk about how we turn objections into opportunities. Wow. I mean, this is real issue, real topic. We got a great book from Stephen Schiffman. Boy, this book's been out for a while, but we're going to talk about it. And of course, the lightning round, top 10 ways to prepare your team for objections. And of course, we got a great question from Jenna in New Orleans. So, hey, it's going to be a good show, right?
That's right. Let me hit the video and we'll rock and roll.
Prospect with integrity, we will get customers who have integrity. Integrity is the foundation from which everything is built on.
You better understand value. But at the end of the day, sales is a relationship business. It is a people business. It is an emotional business.
This is Sales Logic.
Hey, before you tell the audience how the show works, we should remind people the new website, Sales Logic Podcast, really, saleslogicpodcast.com. It really looks good. Man,
it does look good. We had it overhauled. All the latest shows are there. You can go back into the archives and see everything, and then you'll be seeing announcements on some of the latest things that we're going to be doing for 2023. We've got a lot planned, but here's how the show works. Every week, Mark and I come to you with a hot topic to discuss. We have a question from you, the audience, which is probably the best part of the show. We recommend a book that we all should be reading, and we leave you with a lightning round, your ways to get return on investment immediately. So, Mark, what is on tap for today?
Well, as I said up front, the topic is turning objections into opportunities. Ooh, how many times do we hear objections? And we run and cower and say, I'll just go find different customers. Yeah. Anyway, hey, the question comes from Jenna in New Orleans. She says, I'm in luxury sales. The nice to have, but necessity products. I love how she phrases that. The last few years have been great, and I have blown through my goals every month. But with the expected, I got to use that word, recession, rising interest rates, more and more prospects are turning me down or delaying the purchase. Any ideas?
Yeah, first of all, you're probably still selling the same product that you sold in 2022. Now, we're all going to sell the same product. The problem that we solve has got to change. So there's a couple of things I think that you need to look at. Is number one, is what is the value that what would make somebody want to buy the product this year versus last year? What has changed about your ideal prospect? And do you need to change your ideal prospect just a little bit? I mean, maybe there was more opportunity for a luxury item with a wider target market. You might have to narrow that in for 2023. Mark, what are your thoughts?
Well, that is spot on. The product, I'm going to argue the product may be the same, but it's the outcome. It's the outcome. And what you have to do in this period of time that we're in, and I refuse to use that R word, you got to get even tighter with your audience. Who is your target market? Because if you're in luxury sales, we've seen all the data. That higher end is still doing very well. So it just means you've got to refine your market that much tighter. And this is a message for everyone. As we go into these awkward times, see, I can't use that term. It's tempting just to throw yourself into the wind and see what happens. No, that is the wrong strategy. Now more than ever is the time to get absolutely focused.
Absolutely focus. The other thing is you need to, the place where I would start if I stopped closing deals, I would stop selling and I'd start listening. I would start going out and really paying attention to those objections. Why aren't they buying? What's not being met? And what isn't being addressed? I'll give you a great example. I've kind of been toying around with this idea of buying a new car. I don't really need one, but I've had this one for a while and it's got some miles on it, and now might be a good time. Now, I'm not a high-end buyer. I don't spend a lot of money on things like that. I'm more of a practical person. But when I was at the car lot buying, they were asking me a lot about what I do for a living, how I use the car, what value. And they showed me a car that is a higher end than I would typically buy, but from an equipment standpoint, to be able to make calls and do conference calls from the road, it was really pretty incredible. That was attractive to me. Now, that's a problem I didn't even know I had. It wasn't within my realm of possibility that I could do, but it's a value point that I would be willing to pay for, because to do high quality calls while in my car is worth it to me.
I would buy that car for you, because the majority of calls I have with you outside of this podcast, you are in your car.
Exactly.
Yesterday we were talking, and you were in your car. So there you go. So I will buy. Now, see, that's very interesting. See, it's honing it in on what is the specific outcome that customer is looking for. And you use the magic word. We talk about it on every show, listening. More than ever right now, we've got to be listening to our customers. And again, Jenna, you sell luxury products, and you probably love talking about what it is that you sell. But you know what? It's the experience. That's what you're selling. And you've got to be able to understand from the customer, what is the experience that they're looking for. You can't tell them. They have to live it in the words and the phrases they share with you. And if you don't put them into that position of comfort and trust that they can share that with you, guess what? You'll never be able to complete that sale. And this isn't just a lesson for Jenna in New Orleans. This is a lesson for everybody. We've got to allow the customer to feel comfortable to be able to share, whether it be B2B or B2C, the experience that they're looking for.
Yeah, I would also say that as a sales professional, you have to help me understand even what I want and the outcome that I want. Because like I said, when I was looking for a car, I didn't even know that was a possibility. So here's my objection. I'm not paying that much for an automobile. I think that's stupid. It's ridiculous. I don't do that. I mean, I'm fairly cheap, if you know me. And
yes, we know you, Mayor. We know you, Mayor.
So I really question everything I spend. But the moment that they switched the value prop to the fact that, like, my time is incredibly valuable, and being able to do a high quality, hands-free conversation where I can close deals and make money from my automobile, now all of a sudden it brought the price of the automobile down in my mind, and it was worth the input. That is your job as a salesperson, is to, number one, understand the objection. Number two, help me figure out what the value would be if I would spend that money. And does that value apply to me?
Now, what you're talking about is so good, because here's the thing. You walked in with almost a mental objection that you didn't want to pay that much for a car, right? Right? I mean, you're kind of thinking, I really don't know if I want
absolutely.
But the salesperson was able to get you to feel comfortable enough to be able to describe the experiences that you were looking for, what you wanted to say. And that's what, and then you began to share. And it goes back to a comment that I've used in terms of what's our role in sales, is to help our customers see and achieve what they didn't think was possible. That's what that salesperson was doing. He or she was helping you see a problem that you didn't think you really had. But just through that conversation, you brought that to the surface. That salesperson absolutely doing their job. I got to ask you, did you buy the car?
I'm thinking about it. I mean, I still, like I said, I really went in there. I'm not sure that I want to buy a car, but if it isn't, if it isn't in this first quarter, it'll be by fourth quarter. I mean, I really see that as something that I need and would add value, to my life. Now, here's the other thing. We've had so many people commenting here about the importance of your ideal customer profile. This would be a moot conversation if I couldn't afford that car. So you have to make sure that you have chosen well before you dive in to this conversation, and that person is the right fit for something, because I may want this car, but if it isn't within something that I can afford, it's not worth it.
Well, then, because what you would have raised is an objection that the salesperson couldn't solve. And again, this comes back to the fundamental basics of objections. Knowing your ICP helps you clear the hurdle in those initial objections. But I'm going to go back to something else. Regardless of what car you buy, you have now got in your mind that you want a vehicle that has the ability to do hands-free calling in a very high quality setting. That's suddenly no longer a nice to have. That is a need to have.
Yeah.
And I'm going to credit the salesperson for bringing that out. That is so spot on.
Yeah. Mark, I love this comment from Derek here, who's in for business development. He says, one of the many objections I get is that Microsoft Teams is free and preferred by the administrator. What a good objection. So let's kind of help Derek through this. Mark, what are your thoughts?
Hey, okay, it might be preferred by the administrator because the administrator is not using it. I tell you what, I go back and forth between Teams and Zoom and tons of other platforms. And let me tell you something, there is many hiccups within Teams. So you got to ask yourself, what's the user experience? What is it that they're looking for? How does it fit in? And again, Derek, I tell you what, you've got to understand your customers. How are they using video conferencing? How are they using other features? What does their total communication package look like? And begin to frame it down from there. Because I'll tell you what, I know people who were on Teams and they've said, screw it, we're gone. We're leaving Teams. Why? Because it wasn't meeting their satisfaction level. So, hey, your customer is not the administrator. Your customer is the user who is using it.
Yeah, I'd say, Derek, first thing you need to figure out is this a valid objection, or are they just trying to get you out of the office? I mean, that's sort of the, and that's just a gut feel. But let's assume that they would be interested in working with you, but they've got this administrator who's pulling the purse strings, right? So the first question I would ask is, let me talk to you about, what do you think of the Teams experience? And if the Teams experience isn't good, and for a lot of people it isn't a good experience, and that's why they would be open to using other platforms, then your job is to help them figure out how to convince the administrator of the value of going with a different platform. You need to get on the same team as your client, because the very first sale you have to get over objections is to the administrator. Once you can get the administrator over the objection, then the path is clear. But you're going to need to, Mark and I deal with this all the time, and anybody else who's joining us with, you've got a meeting planner, and the meeting planner wants to hire you, and they have to convince the committee, a group of people that Mark and I are never going to talk to, that we're the right fit. We have to get on the team with the meeting planner and say, look, let me make this easy for you. Let's talk about, I'm going to help you craft exactly how to position this with the committee. You have to do the same thing with your client to the administrator. Say, I get it. The person pulling the purse strings, that's a difficult hump to get over. I work with it all the time. I got you on this. Let's talk about some things that you could present that would make dollars and cents to them.
Yeah, and see, for you, Derek, go back to the example that was shared regarding Meredith's car buying experience. That car was more expensive than what she wanted to pay. I mean, it's like, I don't want to pay that much. But the salesperson stayed in the conversation and got Meredith to explain what were some of the things she's looking for. What are some of those things? And that changed Meredith's entire perception about the price of the automobile. You see, it's about the experience. It's about the outcome. We got a great audience jumping in. I love this comment from Syed. Buyers who don't care about pricing are the customers more concerned with the sales process and the way they get served. Spot on. Price is a one-time experience. Value and experience lasts a lifetime. And you've got to make sure that that comes out of the old Zig Ziglar playbook. But you got to keep that in mind. Price is totally overcomable. And you got to view it as an objection. That's the whole topic we're talking about, turning objections into opportunities by really drilling down deep and understanding what is it that the customer's looking for.
Yeah, I think I think a foundational piece though that we need to talk about here today, and John, we're going to jump in here in a second and answer your question, but is from a sales perspective, expect an objection. I mean, don't take it as a negative. Like it's Procter and Gamble is a great example of this, of a company. They have used customer complaints as a way to perfect their products and get better. So when somebody objects, don't take it as a stone wall or, oh my gosh, I've done all this work, I'm not going to get the sale. They've just given you another clue that if you can solve that piece, you're going to get closer to closing, to closing the deal. So get your head right around an objection, because the better you can solve an objection for the person sitting in front of you, that prospect, the better prepared you're going to be for every future prospect, the better job. That salesman selling me that car, that's not the first time he's been down this avenue. He knew what he was doing in the way that he formed the questions to get to the meat of what I wanted from a car. So we got John here, one of our favorite regular listeners. How should or did the car salesperson ask if there was a hidden approver, a spouse, without offending the buyer? What a good question. Because I got to tell you, being a woman, I get offended all the frickin' time. My husband and I went in to buy golf clubs one time. For me, I'm the golfer in the family. The salesperson completely talked to him. They did not, they did not talk to Rob at all. So when we were having this conversation, I felt like the way that he got at it was that he was asking me a lot of questions. How do you use your car? Is it more for around town? Do you travel with it? Tell me what you do for a living. And he said, is there more than one driver in the family? Are you the only one who's going to be using this car, or is there anybody else involved? And I said, well, my husband will drive it on occasion, but it's really my car and I use it for work. That was enough of a clue to him. A, I have a job. B, I have a salary. 90% of the time, I'm going to be driving this car. He could pretty much tell at that point, I'm the person he's selling to.
See, I love how he eased his way into that. Now, I want to unpack this. Wow, we're 18 minutes into the show. We could go 3 hours on this. Here's a couple things you got to keep in mind about the salesperson and Jenna and everybody else here. It is easy when you hear an objection to jump right into the product. He could have said, "Oh, this is," because he knows his product. This salesperson, I assume, I don't know if he was he or she, that knows the product well. But here's the whole thing. When you hear an objection, like you raise the objection, it's more than you really want to pay for a car. You first have to validate, is that a real objection? So many times what happens, in the absence of trust, customers will put objections on the table just to create a diversionary screen. And that's not the real objection. That's not the real. So you've got to make sure the first step, you've got to sit there and ask them, hey, to clarify, what do they mean by that? Don't flinch, don't freak, don't cower, don't run. But most of all, don't sit there and just throw your solution back out on the table quickly to them. Get them to clarify, get them to share with them what it's all about.
Yeah, well, so Derek, great question. So overstand the objection and drive more discovery questions. Absolutely. Again, I think working in examples is probably most valuable here. Here's what the salesperson did with me. I came in there. I clearly said, I'm just looking. I don't need to buy a car right now. I'm just kind of toying around with the idea. He said, great. Tell me a little bit about what you were looking for. And I flat out said, look, I do not consider a car a good investment. I know the moment I drive off the lot, it's not going to be very what. So I was blunt about the fact. And he said, okay. He said, I completely understand that, and we can work within those bounds. Tell me how you're going to use the car and what you need from an automobile. So Derek, to your point, he validated the fact that that I made it clear I was not willing to pay very much for a car, that I was looking more on the lower end. And then he went on with discovery questions. So you're exactly right.
And see, the salesperson was getting you comfortable to describe the situation that you're looking for. And this is so key. Objections. So many times when I hear objections, it's because the salesperson's been doing 90% of the talking.
Yeah.
And the whole deal is you got to balance this out. You have to let the customer have control of the conversation. Oh, I can't do that. No, I think you can. You can. Because that's the only way, if you're confident and competent in how you sell, that is how you're going to get the customer to absolutely share. Because if that salesperson had kind of, so to speak, attacked you when you shared that price point, you would have walked out. And that automobile would never be in your selection process, or that dealership or that salesperson would never be in your selection process. Hey, we got a great, wow, we're at 22 minutes already. We got to jump into the book here.
Yeah, Mark, I have to make one comment though that I can't leave it. I'm so sorry, but I can't leave this.
No, go ahead.
Because I really want the audience to understand this, is that I went in there wanting to pay not very much for a car. He broadened my mindset. If he'd have sold me a cheaper car, and then I'd been in Mark's car, and Mark could do all the things my car couldn't do, I would be mad at that salesperson for not pushing past the objection. I really want all of our listeners to get that. When you push past objections, you're adding value to the relationship. It isn't like you're trying to push me so I close the deal. You know your product and all the amazing things that it could do. So you have to help bring me into that circle. So I want you to understand, I wasn't irritated with the objection and pushing past it. I would have been irritated had I bought a car that didn't meet a need that I didn't even know I had.
Yeah. And you weren't irritated because he made you feel comfortable in the conversation.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly, Dwayne.
The questions he asked were not confrontational, but they opened the conversation. And undoubtedly, as you shared something, he then asked you another question that built on that. And you kept the dialogue going. And what did you created he created, I presume it was a he, right?
It was.
He created a high level of trust with you. And think about that. That was not what you walked into that dealership with. You didn't have a high level of trust in that salesperson because you didn't know the person. You didn't.
Right.
But you exited and you have that high level of trust.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that I didn't know him and he was a car salesman. I didn't have any trust in him at all.
Right. Because of those preconceived notions. Exactly. See, this whole thing, slow down. Ask questions. Don't allow yourself to become confrontational. Your objective is to create that element of trust and be that advisor. Yeah. I love this comment from our good friend, John Register. Love this comment. I tell you what, he is a force of nature. Love you, John.
Yeah.
The extent that he goes to be able to demonstrate value is huge. Spot on. Hey, we got to jump to the book. So, hey, you selected the book this week. I got it on my bookshelf, but I can't reach back to grab it fast enough. So why don't you tell the audience about it?
25 Toughest Sales Objections and How to Overcome Them by Stephen Shipman. I hadn't read this one in years, and I was going back through my books, cleaning out the closet over New Year's. And I thought, God, that is such a great book and still really relevant today because, there's all different types of objections. I mean, there's time, there's budget, there's I want to work with somebody else, there's I don't understand your product. And getting better, I think, as salespeople, one reason I wanted to bring this topic up today is because we're headed into 2023. We're in it, but in 2023, while I still think it can be a great year, I think we're going to see more objections than we've ever seen. I mean, everybody's worried about supply chain. They're worried about interest rates. They're worried about war in Europe. There's just everything is having to fight its way back into the budget. And people who have never objected to you before are going to push back a little bit. And if you can get your head right around, as Larry Levine said, a little healthy, little friction is healthy for the conversation. Be ready for that. And then be prepared. So it's a really good book to read. It'll do a couple of things. Shift your head around how you think about objections, help you understand and identify the type of objection that is coming to you so you can build the right answer and add the right value.
Yeah. See, the whole key with objections is you have to be prepared for them, but don't allow yourself to become emotionally or mentally distraught because of them. Yeah. They are very simply steps along the way to ultimately create more value. Because if you don't clear the hurdle with these objections, you are not creating the value that you need to be creating for your customer. Wow, we great commentary this morning. Hey, lightning round. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Top 10 ways to prepare your team for objections.
All right, boy, everybody's going to hate this one, but you better role play them.
Oh, shoot. You took that one from me. Hey, come on, man. Yeah. And I'm going to say role play even more. How's that sound?
Talk positively about objections. Get their head right around an objection and the opportunity that it is.
Are you stealing my script? Because that was going to be the next one.
Okay, you go ahead. You go ahead and go first.
No.
You do the next two, and I'll follow you.
Hey, I don't think that fast. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, hey, here's the deal. Go through your CRM system. Why did customers not buy in the past? What were the objections they raised? Have a discussion amongst your team. What are the ways to handle these? What are the questions? Not the solutions. What are the questions you need to be asking to validate and get that person to explain better as to what that objection is? Second piece is this. As you go through and you hear objections, make sure you're writing all of them down. All of them down. Don't, because again, you want to create your FAQ, so to speak, on objections. And I'm going to throw out a third one here. Anytime, because I can cheat, I can do that. Anyway, anytime you hear an objection, never accept it at face value. Ask the customer to clarify more as to what they mean by that. Because chances are, especially in the absence of trust, that's not the real objection.
Yeah, I would say send your team out on, take a day out of the month and just send them on a listening tour. Tell them today we're not going to worry about closing anything. We're going to call our top 10 customers. We're going to call our top 10 prospects and just say, I want to know and I want to understand. We're trying to figure out how to serve customers and prospects better as we move through 2023. What do you like about the products that are out there? What do you not like? And get a good list of exactly what the highest and biggest objections are. And then brainstorm as a team the best ways to overcome those.
And the next one, I have audience participation here from Keith. How to overcome when you simply can't afford. Hey, it's not price. Price is a one-time event, the value. Look at the lifetime cost of ownership. What is the lifetime value? Go downstream and ask the customer how they intend to use, how they did. Price becomes irrelevant when you look downstream.
Yeah, and you also have to, I would say, look at the objections that you've gotten as a team and go back and ask yourself, why did that objection come up? Part of the problem could be that your team's picking the wrong prospect. I mean, if you don't close a deal, if you can't push past an objective, like I said, if I couldn't afford that car, he could be the best somebody who could get over objections like crazy. It would be irrelevant because I can't buy the product anyway. So help the team understand where an objection was a valid objection and not.
And I'll share one more, you share one more, and we'll close it down. Understand where and when is the objection coming? Is the objection coming early on? Because that means there's probably no clarification as to what it is that you're selling. If the objection comes further down, closer to when you're trying to put a proposal on the table, so to speak, this is now a negotiating question. And again, you've got to clarify what do they mean on both of those, but both of those have separate outcomes. Go ahead. Wow, we got so many comments coming in. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Derek, you're not going to get to the gym because this show is going to go for another 2 hours.
The last one I was going to say is reward and value those team members that get past objections. I used to work for a boss that every Monday morning we would huddle up, and we would huddle up for no more than 15 or 20 minutes. And we would talk about what we were seeing in the marketplace, and we would help each other overcome objections and almost start like an objection overcoming community among your salespeople, where I share the fact that I lost a deal and Mark's able to weigh in and give me his thoughts and his ideas as, hindsight's 2020. Well, the beautiful thing about hindsight 2020 is that I can use it going forward. So don't make objections a bad thing in your organization. Make them a constant learning opportunity.
That's so good. You got to play the long game. Never put yourself in a position where you feel that this one deal is the one I have to have, and I have to overcome this objection, because then you will give away the farm. And with that, we want to say, hey, thank you for listening to Sales Logic this week. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. If something we've said has earned you a single dollar, hey, consider telling a friend about our show, because it's how we grow when we help you grow. Hey, I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meridith Elliott Powell.
And remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical.
All right. I want to make one comment with what Keith said here, and he would love to connect with commenters. Please go out to LinkedIn and connect with one another. Remember, you can always connect here Saturday mornings and look for things. Mark and I are, as we move into 2023, you're going to see a lot of opportunity for us to connect as a community and work even more closely together. You have been amazing today. I don't know what we would do without this audience. We are so lucky to have you.
We would do the show alone. But I couldn't put up with you for 33 minutes.
Well, the show would certainly not be as good. Please join us back here next week, 8 a.m. Eastern. Mark your calendar. We'll have another topic and another opportunity for everybody to dive in. As of now, head out, look for the objections this week, overcome them, and close more deals. We'll see you next week.
Great selling.